Good morning and welcome. This is Michael Bartlett and Merrylin, LeBlanc for deep dives with new perspectives. If you like what we're saying here, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. Please tell your friends, ask us questions, leave comments. We're here to serve. How you doing this morning, Merrylin?
I'm doing great, Michael. It's another day in paradise with this great weather in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and and some moisture included. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Maybe even another
And
winter storm on our way, which would be great. I still see snow around here outside, but not so much that I can't go out and enjoy. I think we had like got to the 50s yesterday, which compared to our friends in Texas right now feels really wonderful.
oh yeah, it's interesting because this is related to the topic. It's like you can live and have people in neighboring states who are experiencing extremely different kinds of conditions.
What do you mean by that?
Somewhat related. Somewhat related, although at the case of Texas, I think part of the differences have to do also with the differences politically there versus in New Mexico. Yeah.
But it's the same thing anyway. I mean, like, so kind of, I'll just let the cat out of the bag, so to speak. But so just like, adjoining states have very different, senses and abilities about them and ways of doing things. What is it like when we have like planets in adjoining signs? Like say you're a Scorpio and you're trying to figure out what a Sagittarian is about.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, well, this is an interesting topic for astrologers because and basically some of the answers to it get down to some of the most basic components of astrology.
In what way?
If we want to start with Scorpio Sagittarius, in the natural zodiac, Scorpio comes first and then comes Sagittarius. Scorpio is considered a water sign, and Sagittarius is considered a fire sign. So just starting elementally, there are other differences, but starting elementary, water, well, water versus fire. How do they work together? If we just think of, uh, I've got a pitcher of water. Water needs a container, by the way. Water comes out of a faucet. Water comes out of the sky sometimes, but and water sometimes seems to come out of the earth because sometimes there's dew,
Or
on the plants in
spring?
the morning or whatever. Whereas fire, where do we get? We get the sun is a huge ball of fire to us, right? But where else do we get fire? Oh, sometimes there's fire in the form of lightning, just from nature alone. I'm not, whatever, talking
Something
about.
smoldering maybe and slowly gathering heat as it decomposes and then combusts.
Right. So, when we have lightning, there's usually clouds, thunder clouds, right? The air is whatever. So there's water involved. I don't know. I mean, I don't really we need a meteorologist, I guess, or I'd have to go, read something about it, which I haven't. But, the phenomenon of lightning takes a lot of elements, I think, combining. If we look at the four basic elements that we astrologers use, which is the water, the fire, earth, and air. And
Kind of
the
takes all
other form,
four.
there's another form though, and Scorpio brings this up. Scorpio being this water sign, okay, but sometimes fire from the core of the earth. It seems like fire, there's if we go to the very core of the earth, there's this hot magnum. There's heat, which we associate with fire, heat, and the pressure of the heat sometimes moves the magna, the melted earthly material, and pushes it to come to the surface. It's what is fire seeking? Fire is seeking air, to continue to grow. So it wants to be out and contained, where or fed, not contained. It wants to be fed so it can expand. Around the sun. What keeps our sun burning is somehow or other the components of space of what we refer to as air. Space, though, is a little. Space has different components to it than the space around the earth.
Our
There's
atmosphere.
layers, our atmosphere.
Yeah.
But it's still, fire seeks that to spread, okay?
It needs it.
And as it spreads, it does leave something in its path. And I think the biggest image of that is the volcano coming from the core of the earth, as far as its source, that heated, that intense heat that has melted some of the hard earth and spewed it up as it finds an opening and finds air to spread more or whatever. And comes and forms it. So you have this kind of, with Scorpio, you have this urge from within to, it's water, but it's an urge that wants to kind of be warmed.
Yeah, definitely.
So what are the things we associate with Scorpio? Wants to be Scorpio
frozen, right?
Exposing. So
there's a frozenness about Scorpio, right? A coldness in a way. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
I have actually represented it as ice sometimes.
I agree. Yeah,
ice.
Ice princess or ice queen.
Yeah, but ice, but Scorpio can't, as ice, it's hard to move unless it's around melted water. So it wants some of that heat. So when it goes into, if you start out with Scorpio and you've got a planet there, it wants to go into Sagittarius, to have that movement, to be intimate with another, to be close to another, and whether
the skin's been shed in a way, right? Because in that revealing, because Sagittarius is also, it's fire, but it's also a truth-seeking fire. Right. And so after that Scorpio, after you've walked through the valley of death, because that's kind of what Scorpio does, it strips you away of all those things that are kind of unnecessary. And then you get to Sagittarius, like, all right, I'm ready. I'm ready to step onto my path. I'm ready to step forward. And what are my goals? What can I do? I want to be in relationship. What is out there in the world to experience? Because that fire wants freedom, right? That's what air gives fire, is that expansiveness, right? That freedom. But I love that image of like the volcano, because it is almost that way of like Scorpio to Sagittarius. It's that molten lava that comes up and then it finally goes, it gets released. And it's like, ah.
Michael, you got frozen there. I don't know. Okay. I love that. What?
I love that image that you have with the volcano of like, because it's like Scorpio going into Sagittarius. It's like all that pressure and it's built up and it's built up and it's cold and it's hot and it's super hot that it's so cold, but it's like bursting, and then finally it reaches the air and it releases, and that's the Sagittarius. It's like, finally we don't have to be burdened by this.
And for Scorpio, it's that release of ego that keeps it secretive and keeps it from having what it wants. Scorpio wants to definitely share. It wants to be social. It wants that connection with the other. It wants that connection with the world. But there's so much fear there. Oh my God.
What might happen?
If they really, what might happen to me? Will I face death? Since we say about Scorpio, it's one of the areas of life and death. How do I keep surviving? And so to remain contained and secretive, one can say, I've survived another day. I survived, but the pressure gets so intense doing that eventually,
right. Exactly.
spills out.
And then I mean, like, and what you're speaking to also too is this, in addition, Scorpio. I mean, like each of these, so each of the signs next to one another is usually a different modality, fixed, mutable, or cardinal. And then it's also a different element. So there's just a whole different way of reworking, like even if we take the first two signs, Aries and Taurus, Aries is going out there fighting battles and all that kind of stuff. And then it gets to Taurus, it's like, hey, that sofa looks really comfy.
It's really comfy, but it's after a while, it's sort of like this bull is just too slow. I mean, I can't sit around and wait. I have to move on.
So that's Gemini, right? And how wonderful. Like then we get to like talk to people and we get to run around and do track and we're busy all the time. And then we get also all worn out with that. And we've met people and all that. And then what happens in Cancer?
Oh, we have to settle down for a while.
I think about family, right? Gotta like,
Yeah. Maybe we shouldn't be spreading ourselves so thin.
I'm a little tired from all that running around. Like let's just like let's order it. Let's have a home cooked meal.
Oh yeah.
And then
let's sit and watch a movie together. And then talk about it. Yeah, we could go back and use that Gemini a little bit.
Exactly. And then, oh my God, you know what? I want to be an actor. I want to step out on the stage. I want to show people how amazing I am because you know what? It's all really about me anyway.
And then I can get all my friends and family, going back to Cancer, just sit and enjoy the creativity I have.
Exactly.
On the other hand, I can also earn a living. We get into Virgo. I've got a job.
I've actually have some abilities. I can actually be of service in the world. But with so much of a career, I'm feeling kind of empty in my life. I wonder what it would be like to date.
Aha, Libra, that relationship again.
Compromise? I don't know.
This isn't as easy as it looks.
Who am I? If I love you, do I have to stop loving me?
Well, but I love you. So, isn't that the same as you love me?
Love is never having to say you're sorry. Now, wait a minute. You know what? I've had enough of this stuff. I'm tired of making it look pretty all the time. I have to really deal with the issues. I have to address the shit that hasn't been addressed all this time, Scorpio. There's a lot of stuff I've been sticking under the rug, trying to make it all pretty in Libra, trying to make
I'm not so sure I want to be around you when it starts pouring out.
Yeah, it's kind of like being in a monkey, being in the zoo being near the monkey cage. You don't know what might get slung at you. And it's usually it doesn't usually smell good.
Oh, goodness sakes.
But
maybe there's a way out of this. We can go into Sag now.
Yeah, because I think, what I start to realize as a Scorpio is that when I throw out those darts, when I throw that manure out at other people, I'm also getting it on myself. That doesn't feel too good. I'd like to just get rid of this stuff. Oh, look, there's a journey.
Mm-hmm.
I've done my work.
Put on your crusader outfit. Yes, get on your horse. Travel far and wide. Learn what other people have already learned.
I'm going to share my truth with everyone. You know what? I learned a lot walking through the valley of death. I learned a lot like flinging the stuff. Like, I want to do something a little different. Do you ever see that series, Brother Cadfael, back in the day with Derek Jacobi?
I heard about it.
It was really great because he was like an ex-crusader who became a monk. And so he understood, like he was basically like an early forensic investigator, and he understood herbs while everyone else is in there going, oh, it's evil, using things from the planet. But that's Sagittarius, right? How do we blend what the beauty of the universe gives us and find out what the truth is, and share it with others in an abundant way.
Well, wonderful. Well, you know what? We should have this for everybody. What do you think we could do to make this be a way of living for everyone?
I think we can make it into a business.
Or a government.
Or government or religion.
Yeah.
There's a perfect union of Sagittarius and Capricorn, to be honest. There's two, you know. Religion is a big, big business. A lot of people don't understand that.
Oh man.
Selling
Yeah.
my ideas, right? Because that's like, bringing those great ideas from Sagittarius. Hey, let's make some money on them. We can actually like control people here.
Yeah. Speaking
Don't tell anyone.
of truth, we should have laws.
Well, there are people who don't really know how to handle themselves right. And if we don't tell them how to handle themselves right, it's not going to be really orderly and we can't sell our products.
Oh my. And then if we can't sell our products, we can't, how can we have those things that we need? Like, food and the wherewithal to get stuff, like get that horse or that car or that buggy or that bike.
As a business owner, I think maybe I should be paying my staff enough that they can take care of themselves and buy my products. Aquarius starts to come in.
Yeah. How can we make this work for everyone?
How can we make this a win-win situation? What's wrong with educating everyone?
As long as they don't interfere with my independence.
Got that freedom
Yes,
again.
if I'm free to believe what I want to believe. I mean, based on certain things. I mean, some people think that they know it all.
Some people do.
I'm not so sure about that.
Usually Aquarians. And then, you let go of that. You've been up in your ivory tower making these wonderful organizational ideas about saving the world and everything. And then you realize, hey, you know what? What about my spiritual self? What about a glass of wine? What about just like watching a movie, vegging out, tripping the light fantastic, taking an ayahuasca journey? See what's on the other side. What is it beyond all this physical world?
Oh, so there's more.
Another round around the circle.
Another way to look at the circle.
Another way to be of the circle and see the circle.
Is it possible to be outside of the circle?
Am I a drop of water or am I the ocean?
How about a breath of air and I'm outer space?
It's all about perspective, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of this interesting thing. And then, so it's this whole developmental cycle. I mean, we could also break down each of the signs as far as like, from those parts of when we're growing up and becoming aware of these different things. We kind of touched on it a little bit in this process that we did, but it's kind of fun, to understand that each of them builds on another. And sometimes, I don't know, do you ever use, there's a term in astrology, they call it a semi-sextile. It's like a 30-degree relationship. Do you ever use those?
I do in a way, but not typically by relationship. One of the things I find very informative is that if you're dealing with a couple planets, and just to go back to the case of Scorpio Sag, Scorpio is ruled by Mars and Pluto, and Sag by Jupiter. And if I want to really understand that area of my chart where these are, I might look at the relationship of those three planets in couples, Mars to Jupiter and then Scorpio to Jupiter as well. And also alone, Mars and Scorpio. But I'll look at the differences. So let's say that two of them, Mars and Jupiter are 30 degrees apart in my chart. Now, there's two ways in which they could be. There could be what we call an applying 30 degrees or a separating 30 degrees. And I'm using the exact thing because, I go to the Sabian symbols. So if it's applying 30 degrees, the symbol there would be 30 degrees of Aries in terms of the difference between the two of them. 30 degrees of Aries is symbolized by the duck in a pond. So that relationship is saying there's something about trying to bring out my individualistic behaviors when, I'm, let's say I'm one of the workers at Amazon, stalking people. How am I different from all those others who are doing this job? So that, that's kind of a metaphor, a comparison of how I use that energy in my chart.
Interesting.
If it's a waning, then we're talking about the first degree, or no, not the 30. It would be like the
Zero
first degree of Pisces in the natural zodiac, which is an open marketplace. And so in some ways, I would use those to realize that we're all one huge community. And even though there's all these differences, I mean, gosh, there's, if you go to a farmer's market, for example, there's all these vegetables and stuff. How is my lettuce different from the lettuces in the other? And sometimes it's only a matter of price, but sometimes there's a matter of quality. And so these energies, I'm using those energies with those planets. So that's how I use aspects more than anything else. Is it adds another layer of interpretation to what I'm seeing in a chart. But I don't go there first. I look at the planets first that we're talking about and how they operate together. And it's like in that operation, the distance, because you could have a waning or a waxing sextile, semi-sextile, you're talking about 30 degrees. And it could be really literally 29 degrees or 28 degrees. This is applying waxing or whatever. And so there's variations in the symbol. So it's I just find it's another layer of interpretation that it provides. And it's like when you read basic astrology books about interpreting aspects, and there aren't that many of them actually that do that.
Because it's hard to quantify in writing.
Yeah, well, right. But also it's hard to, describe all the possibilities
That's what I
as
mean.
well.
Yeah, right.
And that's
Very
where,
complex.
that's where metaphor becomes
So
very
crucial.
useful. That's like symbolism. And also where interaction with the person, knowing, knowing something about that person's life, what's their life like? Are they, what kind of work do they do? Are they married? What's a little bit of their family background? The more you get a little bit of how they
use those energies.
refer to them. I've read very few memoirs in my life. This is reminding me of this. And a couple of years ago, I took a writing class in which the other people in the group had all been writing memoirs. I have never written a memoir, and but the class wasn't about writing memoirs. It was about perfecting your style of writing a little. But so people had samples of what they were writing. And it struck me how beneficial a memoir is to an astrologer because it's insight into a particular situation in somebody's life and how they dealt with it. And that says volumes about maybe one particular aspect in their chart. And it's an amazing kind of process, that, but it also tells me about the benefits of a person why have you come to me as an astrologer?
Mhm.
What are you dealing with that you want more information about? And how have you had to face this kind of issue before? And if so, tell me about that. Because then you can really get at the nuances of how that energy is getting used.
Definitely. And I think, when I think of like adjoining signs, there's an interesting aspect I've seen, at least with people who have strong focuses, say like in a quadrant, say like within 3 signs of one another. It seems to me like there's a way in which the earlier sign has a harder time grokking what the later sign is learning. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like when people have, say, planets like, let's just switch it up a little. Let's just change it to the beginning. Let's do Aries, Taurus, Gemini. They have like a concentration in those three. There's a lot of other aspects to it too, because that's such a personalized part of the chart anyway. But I think, it seems like, how does one integrate, say if you have like, between those 3 signs, you have, say, 6 planets, 1 to 3 planets in each of those signs. I find there's a way, how do they integrate it? There's a sextile that can happen, of course, between the first and the third sign. But other than that, it's these smaller ones. And so it's almost like, how do we reconcile, you know, and here in I don't know, sorry, I'm kind of integrating as I'm talking about it, because I'm thinking, here in Santa Fe, we live in these communities where most of us have walls around our homes, and that's kind of like when you think about each of the sign, it's got its own kind of ways that it kind of guards and holds its boundaries, but then there's a way that it's kind of fluid. And so how do we relate to people who are right next to us when we want to just like pretend that we're our own kingdom? Right? Because each of those wants to believe, there's a ruler for each sign. So there's, each sign or each house, however you want to look at it, is like its own little kingdom. And so how do you go from one kingdom to the next? We started talking about this, like New Mexico to Texas, or like back in the day in Europe, it wasn't really easy to go from one country to another, because some countries really kind of had a really bordered gate. Think about the Berlin Wall and other things. So how do we begin to grok what is that which is right next to us? Because it's almost like a conjunction energy in a way, right?
Yeah, but there's also, well, it is and it isn't, because there's of the distance, and that's when you brought up the semi-sextile. And I'm thinking about, in the natural zodiac, uh, Aries, Mars, and then Taurus, Venus. And it's, if you think planetarily, it's like, you know, Mars is curious in a way, or kind of, Mars is looking, Mars is an energy. It's sort of like the extrovert who doesn't know who he is. So Mars, sees this beautiful property next door and this beautiful person, and Mars goes there to explore. What is this? Is this partly me or whatever? And from the Venus Taurus perspective, looking over at Mars saying, God, that person is so busy doing this, doing that. I have so many things, like I'd really like to make a clearing here and move these rocks over here and move those rocks over there. Maybe if I entice this person to come visit me, I can entice this person to take care of all of this, area. And maybe there'll be some pleasure in it for me.
But it's
Uh,
also a little taming, right? There's a little in that element. I mean, it's like, because the truth is, Mars coming into Taurus's territory is going to feel like an invasion, right? Because that Aryan Mars energy is an interjector. It doesn't have any trouble.
Venus, the feminine. And I don't mean, male or female. It could be either way. So
No,
that's
but
why
I'm meaning the forcefulness of the
but,
Mars, and then the
yeah,
receptivity
but
with.
but 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 that Venus knows how to tame.
That's what I mean. Exactly. Right. There's a taming. There's a like what you said is like, oh, I wonder what I can do to get that freewheeling energy directed, right?
Right.
Because Cardinal Aries Mars is just like, we're going. And Taurus Venus fix is like, I have a job. I have a project I want done. I want you to honor me. Right.
Right.
And then Gemini's getting it done.
Right. Right.
Hiring the contractor,
Oh yeah, who's
clearing
help?
the way. And
Mars could say, who's help? I need some other workers to do these projects.
Mercury's a busybody.
We've got some other neighbors who I think I can corral.
Exactly. Exactly. But it takes a while to understand these things, right? Because as we're growing up, I mean, again, these are all developmental stages of understanding. And so it's like, oh, learning and integrating that Martian desire, drive nature, and how to then use it to shape our values and create those things that we actually really want here on the physical plane. And then enjoying it with our friends, or hiring people to get the work done, and then enjoying it with our friends and our neighbors and our family.
Yeah, think about Venus and Mars and you go to aspects. The natural aspects between them are the waxing crescent phase when we go to the beginning, and or not crescent phase, I'm sorry, I'm semi-sextile, that 30 degrees that you brought up. And if you think about Venus and Mars from a Libra Scorpio perspective,
Whole other octave.
Yeah, exactly. It's in this case, it's a waning semi-sextile, and which is more Piscean or something, but it's almost like in the waning stages, it's in the waxing, it's sort of like the Mars has to take the initiative. The Mars has to say, yeah, I'm curious. I want to go over and see what's going on in Taurus's place. Whereas in the Libra case, it's the Venus who has taken charge to influence the Mars. It's a kind of and when you think about when I've read some things that other astrologers have written about Venus and Mars, and how it really ultimately Mars acts on the desires of Venus, because they have this kind of strange polarity going on.
It can, right? I mean, I remember one time an astrologer looking at charts, and she said she could tell how sophisticated an individual would be based on the Venus-Mars relationship. And I'd never heard that before, but it makes sense. I mean, it's that, Venus takes the rough force and tempers it, so to speak. It makes it into something that is not so intrusive, but something that is actually it creates unification. It creates, I mean, because when we talk about these conjunctions, that's a new birth. I mean, that's the coming together of the egg and the sperm. That's the creation of life.
Right. Well, Michael, we could go on. There's much more to be said about this topic. But we're kind of at that point in time where we call it
time.
We could do a marathon. But then there's Zoom and company to deal with to do the marathon.
Exactly. So how can people find you, Merrylin?
moonwiseastrology.com, which on moonwiseastrology.com, you'll see my email in the contact section, Merrylin LeBlanc at gmail.com or 505-690-1878.
Perfect. You can reach me at michael@cornmichael.com, 505-690-3860. Again, like us, subscribe, share with your friends. Getting a
Yes.
little more animated and fun. Let's, now we got Mercury direct, so let's go out and shake this world up. Have a great day, Merrylin. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.